Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining to this live session. My name is Hamid Hassanzadeh. I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of ParametricArchitecture platform. Hopefully we're continuing our interview series, and today our guest is joining us from Copenhagen, Denmark. He is Kim Nielsen. Kim Nielsen is the founder and principal of 3XN Architects. And if you just wait a couple of seconds, I'm inviting Kim to join to this live session. And there we go.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Kim. Hi, Kim.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Thank you. Thank
And
you
you?
so much. Thank you. Thank you. I'm good. So it's great to have you in the show. Would you like to say hello to our audience?
Yeah, hello. This is Kim Nielsen from Copenhagen. Look forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, would you please discuss a little bit about yourself and your story of becoming an architect and establishing the office 3XN?
Yeah, I think I'll start with how we started 3XN because the story about how I became an architect is too long. Anyway, we started the office in 1983 with 3 Nielsens.
Yeah.
3XN stands for 3 times.
Ah, 3. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So it actually came around because I was invited for an exhibition at Centre Pompidou together with 30 other young architects from Europe by Lego. It had to be a villa made in Lego, and I invited my 2 friends. We had a sort of a little company besides our other jobs. So that was actually the start of the company. So we did what we call a Danish house. And to emphasize the Danish, we realized that we all had the surname Nielsen, which is the most common name in Denmark. So to say it 3 times, it became very Danish. Nielsen, Nielsen, and Nielsen. Of course, very soon after that, it became 3 times Nielsen, and now it's 3XN when you go international.
3XN.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. What GXN stands for?
Green XN. That's our research department. That's I'll come back to that later. Yeah, that's our research department.
Great. Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
So how does 3XN distinguishes itself from other architecture firms? Like, what is special about 3XN?
I think it's 2 things for at the least, but it's very much our philosophy that we actually slowly grew up during the years and actually came around 2000 about how architecture shapes behavior. And I think that's very much the fundament in all our design. That we design out from a fundament of the people inside around the building, how what we design can influence in people's behavior inside buildings and around the buildings. And that's actually, I think, in many ways a different way to design from many other offices. For example, when we won the competition about the fish market in Sydney, it was because we did a fish market and a building around it, and not the other way around. Our competitors made a building and then put the fish market in. I think that's very much tighten it up. What are we all about? We are about what has to happen inside and around the buildings, and then we make the sculpture or the building around it. That's how I think what distinguishes us the most. Maybe I think probably other architects are doing maybe something like that, but I think we are we're really following this philosophy. And then another thing is that we have our research department, GXN. We started in 2007, and we started that because we thought we had a lack of knowledge and materials, and I thought it was sort of boring only to go into the normal store to find your materials. Sometimes we needed something more designed for the building. So we designed GXN because we wanted to be in the forefront of new materials, green materials, and also green technologies.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, great, awesome. So what is good architecture for you, and also what is the visions for 3XN's future?
Good architecture for me is more than buildings. Actually, I used to say that buildings are boring in itself. So for me, it's important for an architect to do a building that can be more than 4 walls and a roof. It needs to do something, as I said before, something special, and add something to a brief. if it is a competition or for a client, add something that you don't expect. That is good architecture for me. If it solves most of the problems that has to do with this particular building and what is going to happen inside the building, and of course it's beautiful at the same time. I think you can learn a lot from nature. For example, nature, everything is more or less always beautiful because it's both functional and it has a look that can be beautiful. If you see a flower, for example, a flower is performing. It's getting bees to come to it, and it looks beautiful as such, but it's also performing. And this is how I like to look at the architecture. If our architecture is performing and not only looking good, I think it's good architecture.
That's great. What is the visions for future of 3XN?
The visions is it's hard to just answer in a short way. I think what we really like is we really like constraints. We really like problems in the sense that all the constraints and problems is just designing our architecture. So my visions for us and for architecture is such that I think that architecture should be really helping people, helping the human beings on the earth here in the future. And this is a big vision. Whatever we design has to have a mission for why we're designing it, and not only designing it as a background for something else. It has to have it has to have a mission.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. So how will 3XN adapt to current changing demands of clients like COVID-19, like pandemics? These kind of stuff affects architecture, and if in the future maybe like we will demand, like clients will demand different stuff from architecture firms about this situation. How do you see 3XN response to these clients like demands?
First of all, of course, everybody hates this pandemic, hates the COVID-19. But the good thing is that it's another challenge. As I said before, challenges develop architecture, and the only way and the only reason behind that we are human beings is that we have developed out of problems. We have to solve problems all the time, and that is actually why we develop the way that we are developing. So when a new thing like this pandemic comes up, and we have to look into how to solve buildings in a new way, we take it in as another gift for how to design buildings. Mm-hmm. We have to design them in a new way. We have to design our homes so they're ready for remote working. We have to design our workspaces so they're ready for more distance. At the same time, I think it's very important that our workspaces also are ready for interaction between people, because that is what is very important for people learning from each other as well. And we are social individuals, so we are in this conflict about designing buildings where we can interact and where we can have social interaction. At the same time, we have to be careful not to mingle too closely because of the COVID and maybe new pandemics that comes up. So I think that's an interesting challenge for us to solve as architects.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Yeah. So as far as I know, you have a research department which you talked about GXN, right?
Yeah.
Could you talk to us about the department now, research green like technologies? What are you doing exactly there?
Yeah, it has grown over the years, and actually our research department is doing research, but we're actually earning money on it at the same time. We very often get this question, how can you afford it? But we actually set it into system, and we started doing that right from the beginning, getting funds from different foundations or from states or whatever, mm-hmm. and also from clients into doing the research that we're doing. And today we have 20 researchers doing research all the time. Today in my office here in Copenhagen, we are about 120 people, and the 20 people of this office is doing research, which is kind of very, very interesting. And this is something we really can use. So we're not only doing research in what we started with in materials and green technologies. Now we're looking at it a lot more holistic. To make a sustainable building for me is for us is also to make a building where people thrives in, that is nice to be in, where people produce more, feel better, and whatever. So we now have a cluster of 4, soon to be 5 PhDs looking into how the built environment has influences in people's behavior. And I think that's it's strange that architects hasn't done very much into that before. I think that's crucial for why we design. We design for people, and not many architects have been thinking about how do people really feel and work and perform in their buildings. So GXN, they go back into what we already have built and evaluate the buildings, interview people inside the buildings to see how people think about being in the buildings afterwards. And we learn from that in doing new buildings again. So this is just one thing we're doing. And then of course we're doing all the sustainable things. We have people that are certified in doing LEED Platinum or whatever for our buildings and so on. But I think the important thing is that you have to look at very holistically. Today, I think to make a building today is rocket science.
Right.
We actually used to say it has to be not rocket science, but it is rocket science today, to be honest.
Exactly.
There's so many parameters into designing a building that is highly complex, and that is what we are using also GXN to tick all the boxes in that sense. We cannot only do again 4 walls and a roof. We have to assure that the building is sustainable, and we have to know all about all the materials we put into the building. The building really has to perform. Now we're talking about intelligent buildings that actually report back to you and perform according to you when you come into the buildings. So it is really becoming more and more rocket science.
Yeah, right. So you are doing all of these out of clients' demands, right? You are trying to implement them into your future projects, right?
Yeah, into all our projects. Yeah, we are, and of course that develops more and more.
Not I mean in all of the projects. Yeah, you are doing, but the work of GXN is like out of clients' demands, and you are adding them out of like demands.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. That is as I said earlier. That's one of the reasons why a client chooses us and not maybe somebody else. Is because we can offer this service as well, and we see more and more clients actually demanding this knowledge when we're doing buildings, demanding that we're not only designing a building, we're designing a lot more than a building. We design how the building is performing, how the people inside are performing. They want the buildings to be certified. They want it to be top of the pops of green technologies and whatever. So there's a lot of stuff they have to implement in the building, and that comes. All these add-ons comes now from our GXN in our case. Yeah.
Awesome. That's great, actually. So you talked about the tools like parameters, like design tools. So what do you think about artificial intelligence, AI, and like computational design tools will just emerge with architecture in the future? And what do you think is will be the role of AI and architects in the future, like in 20 years and 15 years?
I think it's already happening actually with parametric design. I don't agree with Patrick Schumacher that says that that parametric design can solve everything. Parametric design is a tool. It's not a solution.
Exactly.
So we're using it. We're using it on a very high level, and that's why we can design buildings like the aquarium that you can see a picture behind me here now, and why we can design our building for the IOC, the Olympic Games. That is a high-performing building in every way, in the form and whatever. We couldn't do that without parametric design. We would still be drawing and not finish the building if we did it the old way. And I think that artificial intelligence will come more and more into our offices. So in the future, in the near future even, I think most of the details will be done by AI or robots in our design process. And that leaves us more time to really think about what this is all about. What architecture is all about is about making buildings for human beings and making the architecture as such. So I think our work will not be less, but we'll be more focused on doing the right thing, the architecture, and not just doing all the small drawings again and again for all the details and all over the building. So this is how it would help us. So where we probably have today, I don't know, 30, 45, 50% of our staff doing the detailing all around the buildings, they will transform to be more doing the overall lines and the concepts of the buildings and so on. And the AI will take over more and more of this kind of manual work. And that, of course, can be a problem for offices that are only doing the sort of manual work in the future. I think that's a thing that will happen. So if they don't see this future, they will be left out in the future. The big danger about this, and you see it already now, I think, in many ways, is that you will get a lot of boring architecture also, because there's some architects and some developers, clients, that actually more or less only will have the architecture designed from AI and not from architects. And then you will get some catastrophes, you will get some very boring architecture. It is a combination of an abstract thinking, intelligent architect, together with the other thing that brings out the best results, and not the other way around.
Right. Yeah, right. So I would like to ask you about one of your projects. Blue Planet was built 7 years ago, and with the use of BIM, you were able to fit the project into a certain budget. So with all those tools we have now, like what are current limits of architecture and construction? Do you think, and what do architects now have to solve?
They have to focus, as I said before, they have to focus on the real thing, on doing architecture for human beings and doing architecture that performs. And this is a crucial thing that they have to, and of course, shaping the architecture as such. This is what they have to focus on, and not focus on just putting one brick on top of the other brick. This is, I think, for me, it's uninteresting in the long run anyway. So I think we should, as architects, really take our name and our obligation in the right way seriously, because what we do has big influences in our surroundings and our physical surroundings, and we should do it carefully out from how it makes people perform, how it makes people interact and so on. It's our architecture. Our architecture really makes people interact. It makes people, as I say, architecture shapes behavior. So it makes people behave in a certain way. And if you get bad architecture, people behave in a bad way.
Exactly.
You can see that with ghettos. If you get beautiful, nice architecture, people behave in a different way. And that is so important. And that is what architects should be focusing on.
That's right. That's right. So we have a question from one of our followers. Amir asks, actually, the Olympic House project is located in a very special place on the shores of Lake Geneva. How did you integrate such a large scale and innovative project into the historical and especially textured location?
Yeah, the way that we did it, we thought about what IOC wanted, the Olympic Games Committee wanted. They wanted a building or a structure that symbolizes what IOC is all about. It's a movement.
Right.
So what we decided to do was to shape the whole building in a sculptural way, showing movement. And next to the building is the original small chateau that's actually connected to our building today also. We didn't want to mimic that building at all. We wanted to do something that was a lot more sculptural. And then we worked with scale because we wanted to respect the park and the surroundings. So we made the park sort of flew up on the first floor inside the building as well to minimize the scale of the building. So the first floor has the park coming up on top of it, and then there are 3 floors on top of that. So when you see the building, you think about the building as a 3-floor high building and another as a 4-floor high building, as it actually is, because of the way that we shaped it. But we shaped it as a monument, you can say, for the movement, for IOC. That was how we wanted to respect the place and the organization.
That's right. That's right. So I would like to ask another question from one of our followers. Wahid Torabi asks, would you please talk a little bit about Middelfart Saving Banks project? Like with those triangle shapes, how did they came to life? One of the best projects that actually, this is a masterpiece by 3XN. I love it actually. Would you please talk a little bit about that project?
Yeah, I would love to. It's actually one of my favorites. Even that, I love all my kids, as I say. So, but it is one of our favorite buildings as well. We wanted to scale the building. I think architecture in many ways are about scale as well. And we had to make a fairly big building in a small environment. So we wanted to scale the building down and to make it as flat as possible. And to get daylight into the middle of the building, we had to get daylight into the roof of the building there.
Right.
And we love to work with prefabricated elements. So we work with these triangular skylights repeatedly on the roof that actually, when you repeat it like this, it becomes a pattern. It becomes sort of a sculptural way of doing it at the same time. So it performs in a way that it actually brings daylight and views from all the different workspaces to all the different workspaces inside. So it performs, and at the same time it becomes an artistic element. An element that also had to do with a lot of the old buildings in the small town has these small triangles on the roofs. So we took this element up and transformed it into the roof of
brilliant
of
idea.
the bank. Yeah.
Exactly. So we have another question. Actually, I think you talked about rocket science, and we have a question about it right now. Kadu Malto asks, architecture is now rocket science, as you said. How do we realign architectural learning in today's context?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure.
Yeah.
How do architecture is now, as you said, architecture is now rocket science. How do we realign architectural learning in today's context? Like, did you understand the question?
Yeah, I think I understand it. I think the rocket science does mean it has to look like a rocket. It is just that it has to. We have to take all the different. There's so many aspects in doing it.
Yeah.
It is a science. So and of course it is very important that what we do, and I think actually Middelfart Saving Bank is an example of that. The building is connecting to its contact, have this right scaling of the contact. It actually uses some elements from the existing buildings around it in the design, but in a new way, in a different way. But it respects, first of all, the surroundings, respects the scale, the coloring, and everything of the surroundings. So I think this is the way that we align modern architecture and advanced architecture into context.
Exactly. Again, Wahid Torabi asked about, like, you are known for your stair designs. Please, would you please talk a little bit about the importance of these elements in your designs? Like, we get a lot of questions about the stairs of 3XN.
Yeah, it is a very important element. So whenever we can do an open staircase, we do it in our buildings. Most also because it's fun, but it has a practical sense. In that sense that we, again, it comes back to our philosophy about behavior and architecture. It is if you put the staircase in the center of a building as an open staircase, combining all the different floors, then people will use the staircase. So in that way, they'll start to interact and communicate in a different way. And when you walk up the staircase, you have a different overview of the whole organization into the building as well. So it has a practical, and that's a practical sense in doing it that way. And then when you do it, you have the chance of doing it as a sculpture as well, and that's what, of course, we like to play with. So in IOC, the Olympic Games, we played with the 5 rings, because that's a symbol for IOC, and placed the 5 rings as a staircase in the center of the building. So here it becomes a symbol, has some symbolism. At the same time, it is actually a practical thing that makes all the different floors connect, and it makes people interact inside the building.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Please, I'm listening.
The president, Thomas Bach, in the organization, he's working on top of the building.
Yeah.
And he says now it takes him half an hour to go up to his office. Not because he goes really slow, but because he has to talk to so many people on the way up. Before, he was more or less, remote, and nobody really talked to him, and he was sort of the big president, the big hero on top of the organization.
Yes.
With this building and with the staircase, certainly everybody has the possibility of talking to him and seeing him while he walk up the staircase. So it has made the organization a lot more flat in that sense, a lot more democratic in that sense, which is what he really liked with it. So this is what a staircase can do.
Yeah, exactly. I saw in the questions this question. What inspires you, Kim?
I see architect as an evolution. What inspires me and us when we do a competition, for example, we now invited for a competition for a natural history museum, then it's all about what has to happen in this building, and then it's about nature and how the building should show something of what is inside the building. Same with the Blue Planet Aquarium behind us.
Right.
That we shaped like a whirlpool because it had to do with water. So it's different thing that inspires me and us when we are designing a building from brief to brief. So it all depends on what is happening inside the building. But what really inspires me is nature and art, I would say. Nature, I think nature is fantastic. You see so many fantastic structures in nature that actually you can use in designing and structuring of your buildings. So I think that's a fantastic thing. Another thing I'm very inspired of personally is art. It's good art, performance artists, and installation artists, and installation art. Yeah.
Wow, impressive.
Yeah.
Impressive. So, are there any architects that influenced your architecture during back, like when you were studying in architecture schools or in the practice as well?
I think there was, of course, at that time, all the big heroes at that time were sort of hard to get and very inspiring. Today, it's they're all competitors, more or less. So today,
can you just name a couple of those architects?
From old times, I don't know. I mean, I had all the usual suspects as heroes at that time as well. All the big like Le Corbusier and whatever, and more over to Charles Moore and these kind of architects that were very much up at that time. And of course OMA and Rem Koolhaas and stuff like that. Today, I think where we are, it's not so much. It's not so much other architects, it is not other architects that inspires me or us. It is what we have done, and as I said, what we've done before, and as I said, the nature and art. We built very much on what we've done before in the next project, so we learn a lot from what we've done. And if we have a similar project, we have here at the office 1,400 models, more than 1,400 models, smaller and bigger ones. So we have a big vocabulary that we can actually look at when we start up in a competition or in a design. And that is actually how we start up. Sometimes, of course, I've been talking to Bjarke Ingels about it when he asked me the same kind of question. Sometimes I would say that it's like, I think it's like a musician. Sometimes you hear a song or you see a project that you would have liked to be the writer behind. So sometimes you see something, oh, I wish I came up with that idea. That happens, of course. I think that happens for everybody. Sometimes you see something that is really fantastic and say, oh, damn it, I wish it was me that came up with that. So that of course happens. Good for that. Without naming anything, but luckily that happens, of course, and I'm happy about that. And I must say, the better the competitors and the better architects there are around the world, the better you can be yourself, because you always have to beat them. So
exactly.
I think the competition is the best thing.
Exactly, that's right. Yeah. So as a Danish architect, how do you describe Denmark's contemporary architecture?
In two ways.
And because you are also the chairman of architecture committee and the Danish Arts Foundation, how do you describe Denmark's contemporary architecture?
Yeah, I used to be the chairman of the Danish contemporary architecture. I'm not anymore, but I think we have a very strong tradition. Had some very good architects during the years, and we have a strong tradition. I always had a strong tradition in architectural competitions, and that actually has made an advantage for Danish architects around the world. And we have a small group of really talented architects that are now also working abroad, and then we have a lot of architects that are not talented. That's how it is anyway. I think when you see what's coming up in Copenhagen, I sometimes, to be honest, become a little bit depressed, because I think this repeat bottom is used too much, but it probably is everywhere.
Everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
The same.
Yeah. But of course, there's a reason why there's actually I actually looked into it. There's more well-known Danish architects than are well-known German architects, and we are 5.5 million people. They're 80 million people. So that must be for a reason, and we have some really good competitors here in Denmark, and that keeps us young, and we have a good community where we talk together, all of us. We meet each other, and we see not only others as competitors, but also as colleagues. And we like, and we share stuff. We help each other whenever we can, and I think that's an important thing as well.
That's great.
But it comes out of a long tradition, I think. Yeah.
Awesome. That's great.
But the same, I see when you see Dutch architecture is, for me, has been for many years, or has a high level as well, MBRDV and OMA and UN Studio and others. That comes from there, has a really high level. And that always also have to do with they have a system. They have another system that we have. They have a system actually where they divide more the design architect and the producing architect up in two bits. Here we are in Denmark, we are doing from start to the end. But it frees them a little bit when you are, as an architect, don't have to think so much about the production. You just have to think about the ideas. You have a more free way of thinking. And that's actually why the staff here at my office, the office is 34 years old, but the average age at the office is 32. So most of the staff here was not even born when I started the office.
Right.
And that's for a reason. When you see our competition department, we are about 30 people there doing sketches and competition. That's the youngest people that are sitting in there, and I enjoy very much working with and I put all my energy in working with the competitions together with another couple of partners, Jan Amundsen and Audum and Steve here from the office. But around them is a lot of young architects that are not polluted with a lot of construction, but has free ideas about what you can do and think about and think more in concepts. And I think that's very important to get the best kind of architecture.
Yes. You personally just working with that competition department, like in most, I've seen your name in most of like 90% of the projects that you are personally involved in the projects, and in large scale and the smaller scales you have projects as well. What do you think is the impact of working with large scales and also in the smaller scales of the projects? How it affects your architecture?
Yeah, I love to make small scale. Actually, we do too little small scale. In a small scale project, you can get more into the detailing, more into the texture of the project. Actually, when you do a villa, a house, you get through all the different stages that you do in a big project, but in a smaller scale. So you do it faster, and you come more into the result. The result is already there after a year or something like that. When you do some of the big projects that we're working on, for example, the AMP Tower in Sydney is being built now, and it's 6 or 7 years ago we won the competition. It will be finished in 2 years' time, so it will take altogether 9 years before it's standing there. So it is a long process to make big projects. And I like the big projects for the complexity and the interesting things that are in them. But at the same time, it's really a relief sometimes to work just on a small one because it's a faster process.
Right.
Yeah.
We have actually another question from one of our followers. What was the biggest challenges that you faced in your projects? Like in one project and in general, what was the biggest challenges for you in projects?
You cannot talk about the biggest challenge. It differs from project to project. There's always one challenge, and that's the economy. You never have to forget about that. That is always a challenge. Whatever we do, when we did the IOC building, we had a budget. And we had to go through value engineering.
Right.
When you did the aquarium behind me, we had to go through value engineering. So this is a big issue. This is a big. You have to take that very seriously. So it can be a big problem. But you have to overcome it. You have to have a way of overcoming it. You have to follow the budget. That's very important to continue working with clients, or else they don't want to work with you. So I think we take it very, very seriously. But the biggest problem can be if you have a client that doesn't respect what you're doing. I think that's the biggest problem, and that has happened where you've gone quite far, and suddenly you realize that you have far, far bigger ambitions with this project than your client has. And I think every architect has been into that situation. And this is the worst situation. It is when the ambition between the client and the architects are not the same, or at least at level. I think at all times, probably the architect has bigger ambitions than the client. If you want to do something, but if you are not on level at all, that is the biggest problem.
Yeah, definitely. When the visions are not aligned with the clients, it's so hard to proceed. I understand.
That is actually why we have dropped off of many projects for that reason. Whenever I sense that with a client, I say, okay, maybe we should leave it. Because if you don't want what we're doing, if you don't listen to what we're doing, and if you're more clever than us in what you want, then I think you should do it yourself. We had once a client that said that was interfering so much in our architecture, and then I said, please, can you let us do what we can do? I will take all your input in, all your functional input and whatever and we will try to solve that, but please let us be the architect. And then he said his mother was an architect, so he knew everything about architecture. Then it came out of me. I said, then I think you should let your mother design it.
Awesome. Brilliant decision. Yeah. Okay, great. So what do you think about our platform, PA?
I love it. I follow it. I've been following it for a long, long time. So there's a lot of inspiration there. When you talk about the inspiration, I think what I love is the diversity of stuff you put in from one end to the other. In that sense, there's no no line in it when you talk about parametric architecture. There's a lot of other stuff in it, more sculptural sort of stuff that comes in, and I think that's very interesting to see.
Awesome. That's great. And as closer with those experiences with projects and academia as well, what kind of advice would you like to share with young architects, students, and young professionals?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that. I think one of the most important things is to tell young architects that they have to know why they're doing what they're doing. It's not only about doing aesthetic or doing a building. If you want to do a building, forget about it. Then you can be something else. You can be a builder, of course. But an architect, that's a lot bigger obligation. It's a big, huge obligation to make architecture. You have to have an idea behind why you're doing what you're doing. Like we have the idea about architecture change behavior. It doesn't have to be that, but you have to have an idea about what you're doing, why you're doing it. It makes it a lot easier for you to design as well. If you don't have that, you are in big trouble. So focus on why you're doing what you're doing. Then you are on the way.
Thank you. That's brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. That's great. Thank you so much for joining us to this live session. Do you have any final words to share with our audience?
No, I think the only thing I think it would have been like to hear them and see them as well, because this has been a two-way discussion dialogue with you. Yes. Only. It's of course more fun to sit and you can hear and see the audience.
Exactly.
But aside from that, I enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Hopefully we will invite you one day in Istanbul and you can visit, and we will have audience just sitting around asking questions, just integrating. That would be perfect.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Guys, thank you so much for watching this live session. I hope you enjoyed it. We're going to continue our interview series with architects and designers all over the world. So till another episode, another day, stay safe and stay healthy. Goodbye.